Welcome to the Vault XL. This is live number 2. 23 ABC is the source.
After weeks of presenting evidence, both sides have rested their case. The prosecution arguing that Orrin and Orson were dead months before they were reported missing, while the defense argues that the evidence in this case is circumstantial and inconsistent. The prosecution highlighting statements from the couple's own children, who during interviews made statements saying Orrin and Orson weren't in Cal City, or that they hadn't seen one or both boys since Bakersfield. The prosecution also calling to the stand several family members and neighbors, all of whom had no real memories of seeing the two young boys for months. The defense, however, building their case by pointing out inconsistencies in the investigation, citing a lack of reports from police and varying stories from the West children. Defense counsel calling to the stand a child psychologist who testified that during the interviews where the children claimed alleged abuse and that the boys were never in Cal City, she believed the questions may have been leading and that the children had been primed with false memories. As both parties have rested their case, the jury will receive their jury instructions and closing arguments are expected to begin on Tuesday. In Bakersfield, I'm Veronica Morley, 23 ABC, connecting you.
All right, everybody. ABC 23 KERO is the source. Why did they adopt these children? Was it for monetary gain only? Did they favor their biological children over their adoptive children? When you look at this commentary, you will see pictures of the children when they were younger. So they have finally shown all their faces, which is usually they don't do that in on a news broadcast or usually courtroom. It'll just be, I guess, the jury will see the said evidence. But here you will see pictures of the children when they were younger, and most of the children are a lighter skin. They're lighter skinned looking children, and I wondered about that. So I finally got to see all the pictures of the children. These two children, one was a little lighter than the other one, and the other one was a brown skinned child, Orrin West. Were they choosy in the children that they chose? Because I find it interesting that they only chose boys. Why? Why did they only choose boys? Why did they adopt these children but only cared about their own? What happened to the two boys? Were they discarded? Will the truth ever be revealed? Did they physically abuse the children? If one was an accident, how do you explain the death of the second child, which is the youngest child? Did he miss his brother? Was he crying and moaning for his brother, whining for him? Where is he? Where is he? Well, we better get rid of him. I'm going to bring you commentary that some didn't see the children since February of that year. Now, that's a long time. That's right before we got the COVID mandate to stay in the house. Stay woke now. I'm going to bring you two sources of information, and you decide if these two are culpable for the deaths of the two children. If indeed the information brought by their own child is the truth or not the truth, you're entitled to your interpretation of what was revealed in court and the testimony between the children. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to start with my first source, kget.com. Hello, Sammy P. Trezell and Jaqueline West are adept at telling lies, an attorney said Tuesday. They lied to law enforcement, parents, children, Prosecutor Eric Smith said. The lies, he said, revolved around what happened to their adoptive children, Orrin 4, Orson 3. The West claimed the boys disappeared December 21, 2020, while playing in the backyard in California City, having moved there from Bakersfield 3 months earlier. The reality, Smith said, is Orrin and Orson never made it to California City. Relatives hadn't seen them for months, and surveillance footage never captured them in California City or Bakersfield on multiple dates in the weeks leading up to the missing persons report. Where are Orrin and Orson? They're dead, Smith said as he presented a roughly 2-hour closing argument in the West's weeks-long trial. He said the West killed them and asked the jury to return guilty verdicts on all charges, including murder. The boys' bodies have not been found. The West, indicted in March 2022, faced life terms in prison if convicted as charged. Timothy Hennessy, Trezell West's lead attorney, told the jury He's scared, not just for his clients, but for what it says about him. If he can't convince them the prosecution's theory makes no sense and the West are innocent. He said a shoddy investigation and tunnel vision on the part of authorities landed his clients in court while the culprits are still at large. The reality is that two little boys went missing, Hennessy said during his 40-minute closing argument. They got took, and that is terrifying. Alexia Torres-Stallings, lead counsel for Jaqueline West, said, there are glaring issues in this case that cannot be excused. And she said it starts with the California City Police Department. Police failed to write reports to take videos of all their actions and interviews conducted the night of the reported disappearance. Contact with a nearby resident who had a surveillance system wasn't even known until the trial because police never told anyone, Torres-Stallings said. She says she hopes the prosecution isn't trying to manipulate the justice system by blaming the West, but there are numerous problems with their case, she said, and there is reasonable doubt. Ultimately, Smith said the West's four other children, two biological, two adopted, unraveled their scheme. The West wrongly believed law enforcement couldn't question their children without their permission. When a California City police officer interviewed the children the day after Orrin and Orson were reported missing, they all said the same thing. They hadn't seen their brothers for weeks. A week later, the West's eldest biological child came forward with startling information. He told a social worker he saw Orrin die at the family's apartment in Bakersfield in September. He said his parents never called 911 for help. A week later, they moved to California City, and shortly after Orson disappeared, the boy said. The boy said only he and his parents had seen Orrin die. His parents swore him to secrecy, he said, telling him if anyone else knew what happened, the children would be taken away. He knew the right thing, Smith said. The reason he didn't say anything earlier is because of his parents, quote unquote. The West loved their two biological children, but abused their adoptive sons, the prosecutor said. Orrin and Orson were abused merely because they cried a lot, Smith said, referring the jury to testimony from another child who spent time with the West and reported Jaqueline West would place crying children in a chokehold to get them to stop. It's unclear exactly what led to Orrin's death, but afterward, the West conspired to kill Orson, Smith said. They used the COVID-19 pandemic as a cover. It made for a convenient excuse to keep the children away from relatives, he said. In the 3 months from when the boys died to when they were reported missing, the West had plenty of time to dispose of the bodies, get new phones, come up with a story, Smith said. They didn't care about Orrin and Orson, only adopted them for the $1,000 monthly payments the state paid for each child. The West's income came almost entirely from those payments and ones they received for the other adopted children. Trezell and Jaqueline have no moral fiber, he said. They killed the two kids. Police focused on the West from the beginning, Hennessy said, ignoring other possibilities. They didn't look into the dozens of sex offenders living in California City, didn't thoroughly check a tip reporting the boys had been seen in Arlington, Texas, and weren't aware until the trial of lights seen on surveillance footage that could have been a car leaving the vicinity of the West home the night of the disappearance, Hennessy said. These failures extended to collecting surveillance footage, the attorney said. Authorities could have gone further back and collected more footage that may have shown Orrin and Orson, but they didn't, he said. Everyone involved had blinders on. He said other factors were also at play. Trezell West is Black, and this incident occurred at the time of the George Floyd unrest, when Trezell West told police he didn't think they were taking the investigation seriously enough because two Black boys were missing. They bristled, Hennessy said. One officer indicated he was ready to arrest Trezell West that night despite flimsy evidence. Hennessy, who was white, said if his child went missing, police wouldn't be calling him a liar the same night. They would have exhausted all possibilities first. The jury couldn't help but find the prosecution's case weak, Hennessy said. When they rested their case, you had to have winced a little, thinking, that's all, he said. Torres-Stallings went over certain jury instructions, among them how to judge a witness testimony by considering how well they could see or hear, what they were testifying to, how reasonable the testimony is in light of other evidence, and what their behavior was like on the stand. She referred to the testimony of California City Police Officer Brian Hansen and how he gave conflicting statements and then said neither statement was a lie. There are no confessions in this case, and there isn't an overwhelming amount of evidence, Tora Stalin said. With the exception of the eldest child's testimony, she said the rest of the evidence is circumstantial. She noted that if two reasonable conclusions can be drawn from circumstantial evidence, one pointing to innocence, another to guilt, the jury must choose the one pointing to innocence. The prosecution built its case on what the West's eldest child said, but there were issues with how the boy and the West's other children were questioned, Tora Stalin said. Hansen, who conducted the initial interviews, had no formal training in questioning children. Social worker Sonia Barton, who conducted later interviews, testified she was unaware of suggestibility in children. Tora Stalin said there were bad questions that could lead to false allegations. Some involved simple yes or no answers instead of open-ended responses. In wrapping up her 75-minute testimony, Tora Stalin played audio of a detective telling Jaqueline West what will happen to her children if she doesn't tell the truth. Her family will disown her, friends abandon her, the other children will be taken away. As the audio played, Tora Stalin showed a video footage from the West house with the family gone. Everything the detective said would happen came to pass, she said. But Trezell and Jaqueline West are still standing by each other, she said, and they know they did nothing wrong. There is nothing in this case that points to the unreasonable conclusion that they did anything, Tora Stalin said. KGET is the source. Thank you so much for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Big 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are welcome during this live stream. This is live number 2. Great points that the defense has brought pertaining to their 2 clients. You're right, there is no evidence that's been found or indicated in this trial except for the testimony of a then 10-year-old. Also, there's testimony from family members that said they didn't see the children, and also testimony from the other children. But in the end, that is the point that you're trying to downplay. How is it that all the people that have come into court pertaining to these people said they hadn't seen the children? So there must be some truth to it. And why did they wait until December to report the children missing if indeed the child says they had been gone for months? The jury will have to decide if these 2 killed the children and why. Why would their child lie and say, I was sworn to secrecy not to tell so as we could stay together, myself and my brothers? Why would a child lie? And I would assume he was a crafty child at 10, could reason, could think for himself. And that question was asked to Jaqueline by a detective. Why would your children lie? The fact that they said a lot of evidence wasn't gathered, such as blankets, toothbrushes, different things at the house. Or was there something to gather? Because you have 2 children missing. So you have to ask yourself exactly how the house was laid out. What exactly did they have? Did they have adequate furniture? Did the children have adequate clothing? So if you didn't have much, let's just say, it wouldn't be much to gather, Miss Stallings and the other defense attorney for Mr. Trezell. My understanding, toothbrushes had dust on them, so that led me to believe nobody was brushing their damn teeth. One child testified that used to live in the house, Jaqueline would put the children in a chokehold. Now, does that sound like appropriate behavior of a mother? Jaqueline's own words incriminating. She favored her own 2 over her adoptive children. So let's ask that question. Jaqueline Trezell, did you abuse the children that were in your custody? Did you abuse your own children? Why are you putting children in a chokehold to make them be still and stop crying? Why did the children cry? Did they cry because they were abused? They had some type of mental malfunctions, mistreated by other children, lonely, depressed? Because you see, even at 3 and 4, you can be unhappy, unreasonably unhappy for whatever reason. And crying is all you know, as a doctor once told me. It's normal for a baby to cry because he can't talk. So now you factor in toddlers who could possibly talk. They cry too because they still have infant ways. Checkmate. Reasonable doubt has been cast, of course, because there's no evidentiary material, no forensics. And as someone said on my panel, they've had time to clean up any evidence. So whatever reason led them to wait so many months to report the children missing, indeed, they had months to hide things. No pictures, no photographs, allegedly, of the two boys. So let's ask that question. Did they have pictures of their other children in their phones and devices? And exactly, they had months and time to get other phones. One child seen at the house in Bakersfield apartment, vomit cold to the touch, the conspiracy bruise, moved to the next house, Cal City, and the second child, which is the younger brother, he disappears. Why kill the second one? Because as I said on my panel Monday night, if indeed Orrin's death was accidental, how do you justify killing the second child? Stay woke. Are both of the children discarded in the same place? Where are they discarded? In the ocean, the desert, storm drain, burned? Where are these children, and will the truth ever be revealed? Let's go to the second article and bring up a little bit of information from that, because each article has a little bit of different information. Bakersfield.com is the source. I'm going to skim through this information. As most of you know, the state has rested, and they painted this picture, the state pertaining to this couple in their closing arguments, as being abusive liars whose failure to protect their young children led to them dying, while the defense says their characterizations don't align with the evidence. So who are these people? The defense. Who did you categorize these people as? What are their characters? Their characters right now don't look good. Because now you have to say their children are liars, their family members are liars, and the child that testified is no longer in their care. He lied. So although you don't have any forensic evidence, all these people lied about not seeing the children. The child lied about them chopping up food and putting it in a bottle, possibly what caused the death of Orrin. And then also a child who used to be a foster care child testifying that they were put in chokeholds, children. So you want us to believe also he's a liar, and he's 16 years of age. Stay woke now. Once again, the defense says their characterizations don't align with the evidence. Trezell, Jaqueline West have pleaded not guilty to counts of second-degree murder, involuntary manslaughter charge, conspiracy, willful cruelty to a child, and falsely reporting an emergency in the deaths of Orrin and Orson West. Jurors will begin their deliberations Wednesday. Prosecutor Eric Smith is seeking a guilty verdict on all counts, while defense attorneys are seeking a not guilty verdict. Trezell, 36, Jaqueline, 33, favored their two biological children over their four adopted kids and didn't act to prevent Orrin from dying because their biological children would be snatched away. Orson was killed by his adoptive parents because questions would arise once family members realized Orrin wasn't there, Smith added. Interesting. Defense attorneys maintain there's no evidence to prove the when, why, or how behind what happened to Orrin and Orson. Evidence presented in this case was tainted, and numerous missteps by law enforcement don't allow a prosecutor to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the kids were murdered by their clients, according to the defense attorneys. You guys are in a tough spot, Timothy Hennessy, an attorney defending Trezell West, said to the jurors. More than 65 witnesses and 120 marked pieces of evidence were litigated throughout the 22-day trial, with the first opening statements presented at the end of March. Smith attempted to assert that no one in the West family saw Orrin Orson since February 2020. Let me repeat that. Smith attempted to assert that no one in the West family saw Orrin and Orson since February of 2020 and sought to show the boys died in September 2020. The West reported their boys missing from their California City home December 21st, 2020. The boys' bodies have never been found. The West's then 10-year-old child said he saw Orrin vomiting one day while the family lived in Bakersfield, September 2020. His color was changing, the child told a forensic interviewer, and Orrin's body was cold when he touched it. Orson was never seen again by this same child after a sound like a soap bottle falling in the bathroom rang out at the West California City home, he testified. So now we know it was a soap bottle in the bathroom. So what happened when he heard that soap bottle? What time of night was it? Did they hurt the child in the bathroom, hit his head on the tub, sink? What happened? This child was the only eyewitness to Orrin allegedly dying, according to evidence presented in trial. He testified at trial along with the West's 4 other kids and said his parents swore him to secrecy to never divulge what happened to Orrin because he would be removed from his parents' care by Child Protective Services. It's not known what act killed Orrin, Smith said. The now 12-year-old child told forensic interviewers 2 years ago Orrin had stolen Orson's cup that had food. Okay? So Orson, this is the other child, had a cup that had food in it. Well, let's go there. Why would a cup have food, or was this actually soda pop, drink punch, milk, or water in that cup? I would hate to find out that it was actually food and not a beverage. Stay woke now. Stealing the cup led Orrin to be in trouble, Smith said. The West choked and spanked kids so hard they start to bleed for their discipline measures, he added, trying to imply this may have been how Orrin died. The West loved and adored their biological children. They knew they could be taken away once family members started coming over to the West California City home, Smith noted. The night before Trezell's mom was to come over, Smith said the defendants killed Orson to prevent any questions about what happened to Orrin. They got 3 months to discard the body, Smith said. Now I want you to think about that. We do not know if that is true, but even if you killed that kid because your mother was coming over, she's still going to ask, where are both of the children? So you still would have to lie whether one was there or 2 gone. You still have to lie. You still would have to lie. Okay, they're not here. They're at Jaqueline's mom's house. And at some point, if you started having visitors, family members coming, how many times are you going to keep saying that? Oh, they're at Jaqueline's mom's house. Even the same person will start to wonder, okay, well, they're never here. Why is that? How often are your other children going over there? Did they ever tell their parents that they murdered these children? Once again, they got 3 months to discard the bodies, Smith said. However, the West made one mistake, he said. The parents didn't realize law enforcement could question their kids without their permission. That's when their kids started sharing what happened to Orrin and Orson and led to the basis of the charges against them, Smith said. Trezell and Jaqueline have no moral fiber. They killed the 2 kids, Smith said, but their children, they do. Timothy Hennessy, defending Trezell West, argued his client couldn't have killed his kids. Trezell built them custom bunk beds and a whole classroom inside their California City home. There was never any serious inquiry by police that the kids actually were kidnapped, Hennessy said. So you all are trying to say, well, he built custom bunk beds for the children. What's your point? That still doesn't make any sense to how 2 children are missing and dead, and there was a cover-up. And one of the children testifying that I held the secret to seeing the child dead because I didn't want to be removed from my parents' house and go into the state's care. What does it have to do with bunk beds? What does it have to do with, oh, they were fed, they were clothed? And as one child testified, yes, I had adequate clothing and shoes, but that's the same person who provided clothes and shoes who put the same children in a damn chokehold. Stay woke. See, abuse comes in many forms. You can actually get fed, get your hair combed, get sent to school, have adequate clothes, and still get beat up by your parents, physically and verbally abused by your parents, adoptive parents, foster care parents, or whoever is taking care of you. Don't get it misconstrued now. All right, let's resume. And also a whole classroom he built in that home. Once again, what does that have to do with murdering 2 children? Building bunk beds and a classroom in a house. There was never any serious inquiry by police if the kids actually were kidnapped, Hennessy said. That's caused the investigation to be skewed from the beginning because police became pigeonholed on one outcome, that the West committed murder, he added. For example, we can go back to Mr. Hansen. California City Police Officer Mr. Hansen kept telling people there was no evidence of children living in the West California City home, which led everyone to establish their questions and investigation around his statement, Hennessy said. Now, I don't know exactly what this man said, didn't say to the West and on the witness stand, but he can see and he can hear. Hello, Tina, thank you. He can see and he can hear. So what were his contradictory statements made during court? You also heard information in the last article I read. They didn't film any of the questioning and of the children or whoever they talked to, which they should have. You should always videotape any interaction with a witness, suspect, or whomever, because it may come back to hurt you in the end. And I think most people know that's appropriate protocol to always videotape any interrogation. So why didn't they? Because I think that was very lax not to do that. How they would talk to the children interrogated, I do not know if they didn't get the appropriate questions. This lawyer, Ms. Stallings, is saying they should have had open-ended questions, not just yes and no answers. But you also have to remember that they were children at the time of being interrogated by this forensic interviewer. And then they also bring up the surveillance that we had already seen of them getting into the van on that 19th with just 4, and Stallings and her and the other attorney basically saying they had something in her hand. Perhaps it was one of the children, but we get information from family members and the children. Both boys were gone at that point, the 19th, the 21st. Nobody had seen those kids a week or days before Christmas. Okay, I'm going to resume this information. Brian Hansen kept telling people there was no evidence of the children living, or no evidence of children living in the West home. So let's dissect that. No children or just the 2 children? Is he clarifying, I couldn't tell the kids lived here, or I can't tell that those 2 children didn't live here? I'd like to get clarification on that statement. However, there were children items in the home. The defense attorney brought out a stuffed Pikachu toy, multicolored plastic balls, a toy, children's clothes, diapers, wrap gifts, stockings, Santa Claus hats, and 2 car seats in front of the jury. There were toothbrushes that weren't collected from bathrooms to be tested for DNA. There were kids' blankets that weren't thoroughly swabbed for DNA, Hennessy said. And there's no evidence the West children were physically abused. All 4 kids were subject to exams in which their bodies were searched for bruises and scars. Very interesting, because I hadn't heard that before, that the children were searched physically. And so far, I had not heard any information that showed any of the children have any bruising, scarring, puncture wounds. And I think that's very interesting and relevant to the case, because that's one of the accusations from the state and one of the charges, that the children were abused. So if you didn't find anything on the children, arms, legs, back, neck, feet, what type of abuse were you all claiming against Jaqueline and Trezell West? Such an egregious, disgusting display and sock in the face to the law towards Stallings said of police officers' incomplete investigation. Ms. Stallings says there were glaring issues with the California City police officers' investigation. There was surveillance footage that wasn't seized by police, and officers didn't write a complete report of their findings. The 12-year-old boy had inconsistent statements towards Stallings said. That star witness testified during prior proceeding he last saw Orrin in December 2020, which contradicts his testimony of seeing Orrin die in September 2020. So the star witness said in a prior proceeding, he last saw the child December 2020, which contradicts his testimony of seeing Orrin die in September 2020. So maybe he got scared, got nervous. I don't know. He's a kid. 12 years old is still a kid. 10 years old is a kid. And as I said to my panel Monday night, does the child miss his parents? Does he want to go back with his parents? Do the other children want to go back with these people? I'd like to hear the children speak of wanting to go back with these people or not, because that may have a variance on, that may make a difference in the variances of the testimony being one way. I saw him here, then I didn't see him here. Because when children become frightened, naturally they may take back what they originally said in an interrogation or questioning. And that's to be expected even of an adult. Once they fear they may be implicated in a crime, whether they participated in a crime or not, they will change their version. Jurors are set to consider if they believe the West or their children. Two different versions of justice were posed to the jurors. Smith implored them to find the West guilty of killing their youngest kids. They were parents and failed to act as such when Orrin died. It's time for justice, Smith said. Orrin and Orson deserve justice. Tora Stallings told jurors acquitting her client would allow law enforcement to keep this case open and search for Orrin and Orson. Do more for these two little Black kids than anyone has done for them in the last 3 years. They have been missing, Tora Stallings said. Wow, how interesting. Do more for them. But yet when the children were missing, Ms. Tora Stallings, if you had followed the content properly, your client, Miss Jaqueline, never looked for the children. Her husband didn't look for the children. They made excuses at the beginning of the investigation. They didn't want to be near the biological family searching for the fear of their safety, but that's neither here nor there, because if you care for your kids, you're going to search for them. You're going to rally for them. You're going to go to the news. You're going to do interviews. You're going to do radio interviews. You're going to pass out flyers. You're going to speak to the public, city council, true crime shows, reporters, news broadcasts. You see where I'm going. They didn't do any of those things. They did one public interview, and that was the end of the story. The state brought information that they didn't even have pictures of their damn kids. So now we have to ask, did they have pictures and photographs and videos of their other children? And you can't make up the excuse, oh, I got a new phone, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, there might be some content that's not uploaded to your new phone. You have to open up new apps when you get a new phone. But the Google pictures, they usually hang on. As I said before, some of my contacts didn't get uploaded to the new phone I purchased recently, but my photos, to my knowledge, they transferred. So you all are liars. Why did you kill those kids? What really happened to Orrin? Did he die from choking on food? What happened to Orrin? Did he make it to the Cal City house? And if he did, why would you kill him? Because 2 missing is more suspect than 1. So I can't logically wrap my head around killing a second child. Because either way, you've got to explain where 1 or 2 are. What's the difference? You've been charged with abuse. So did you all abuse these children physically and or mentally? Have you abused other foster care children? We have one who testified that you did. You put the children in a chokehold. So you see, there's certain things in the case that I don't think are lies, such as the testimony from a 16-year-old former foster child. He has no reason to lie and say you put the children in a chokehold and held them down from 5 minutes to an hour. Your son had no reason to say that you all swore him to secrecy to say nothing. And so he and his other brothers wouldn't be taken away. Your other family members have testified they hadn't seen the children in months, and somebody must have given testimony they hadn't seen them since February of 2020. And that is before we got mandated to go on lockdown. Who was that person? What did you tell your mother and father about Orrin and Orson's not being around? And as someone said on my panel, if Wanda went out to the house to help them unload and unpack, which we got that information a year ago. She had them known that one or two of the children were missing. So what did you tell her? And did you ever tell her the truth? That you murdered the children and concealed their bodies? Did they tell their parents, the West parents? Did Jaqueline tell her mother the truth of where the boys are? And the mother had to realize at some point, if she was dealing with her daughter, the children were missing. And when she finally had to come to court to testify, ding, 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 it should have sunk in. They're lying, because now they've implicated me as the one having the children in December. And by then, both boys were dead. Were the children discarded in the Pacific Ocean and or the desert? Where are the boys discarded? I do not believe the children are alive. You got testimony that the children were possibly seen in Texas. We never knew that the bio mother lived out there. A man has come forward to let you know that that was a mistake. The children that the tip came in about were pertaining to his children, and they are not Orrin and Orson West. So where are these kids? Will we ever get the truth to where these children can be found? When the district attorney brought information of charges last March 2022, I assumed there was forensic evidence against Jaqueline and Trezell West. I assumed that the children were used in abuse of the kids. I don't know why we thought that. Maybe it was the wording in the affidavit. But we never got testimony that any of the children abused the kids and or killed the kids. So I'm trying to understand, why did we have this notion that they participated in the deaths of the two toddlers? And yes, I hope that there will be more evidence. Phone pings, forensics, blood spatter, hair, something. Nothing. If these two killed these two small children, they will be susceptible to kill anybody, their own children or adoptive children, foster care children. That's common sense. And you're not a good parent because you flipped out one day and killed your kid, whether adopted or not. And you logically can't explain two children being murdered and covering one up because the other one's gone. It's still illogical. Did she flip out, Jaqueline or Trezell? And as I said, it still doesn't matter, because even if you flipped out with Orrin, you can't explain killing the second child. So you flipped out again, or your delusional mind said, well, let's kill the second one because it's going to look weird just having the one. That makes no sense to me. What's weird is not reporting the children missing, not reporting there was an accident, not reporting, oh, I spanked him too hard, he bumped his head, or yeah, I killed him. That's the only time people don't report deaths. It's because it's homicide, or they will be deemed a suspect. As I brought you commentary in the Deshina Kyle case, he hit her body because he thought people would think he did it. Well, you did, and the state alleges that you did. So that's what happened here. They knew they killed the kid, so they hid the body and swore their child to secrecy. And then their conscience got to beating them and whooping their tails. So let's go ahead and kill baby number 2. What's the truth? Court TV has done a brief video pertaining to this trial. I'll go ahead and play that said commentary. And you can decide if you believe these two killed the kids, the reasoning behind killing the two, if both children made it to Cal City or not, if only one died at Bakersfield apartment or made it to Cal City. So let's ask that question. Did both children make it to Cal City? If so, when was the actual death of both? Did one die in Bakersfield, discarded in Bakersfield, and then the second child taken to Cal City and then murdered in Cal City? And why? And how in the world do these defense attorneys think they can spin this web to us, even without the forensics, and think we're still going to just hop on board and say that a 10-year-old child lied to authorities about being sworn to secrecy and seeing a dead kid, cold kid, and then another child missing? And also family members saying they hadn't seen the children in months. So then you have to think about DHS records, medical visits. Oh, yes, that's right. It was COVID. How convenient. These people have no rights to children. And sadly, DHS did make a mistake by choosing them. But once again, how would they know that these people would murder these children? They wouldn't know that. Just like when you have a baby, nobody thinks that you would abuse your baby and crack the baby's leg or leave your baby in the company of people that would crack their leg, use drugs, get high, smoke, get your child taken from you. So you see, everyone had a start in life. And sometimes where you start, you don't end up. Sometimes you have a rocky start, tumultuous start, but then you have a great life. Then sometimes it goes downhill. But the gist of this story is that these children were doomed from the beginning, and they didn't have a chance. And sadly, they were born to the wrong people and then fostered and adopted to the wrong people. And that's not their fault. And this happens every day here in this country, because you're going into uncharted territory, the unknown. And no one can predict anyone being abused by their biological parent or an adoptive parent or foster care parent. You're hoping for the best. But what people put on paper and what they say to you in an interview is not necessarily the truth and who they are. They are chameleons, such as born to the wrong people, fostered by the wrong people, adopted by the wrong people. They were all, let me say present tense, they are all chameleons. Nobody knew any of these people, because if they had, the children would be in a better state, such as alive. But nobody knew they would be taken from their parent and abused by their mother. Nobody knew the foster care people would mistreat them, adopt them, mistreat them, then murder them. How would anyone know that? You wouldn't. Let's hear what Court TV has to say about this West trial. Once again, the state has rested. The defense has rested. The jury will deliberate later today in California pertaining to the fate of Jaqueline and Trezell West. Do you believe they will be found guilty or not guilty in this trial? We will see. Court TV is my next source. Mr. Politan is going to give it up once again pertaining to the evidence in this trial, especially when it comes to the photographs. Explain why they had no pictures of the toddlers in their phones and devices.
I'm Benny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And as we begin this hour, let me just lay on the record the work that foster parents around our country do. Amazing. Amazing. There are so many people sacrificing so much and giving so much to children who need it. It's awesome. It is incredibly awesome. And then those parents out there who adopt children who are looking for homes, looking for those forever homes. Amazing. Absolutely amazing people, coast to coast in this country. I mean, there's so much good happening out there. Unfortunately, tonight, it's not about the good. It's not. It's about little Orrin and Orson. They were adopted by a young couple who had 4 other children at the time. 4 others, 2 biological, 2 that they had also adopted, now up to 6. But those 2 little boys are missing. There they are. I mean, how you could do anything other than just hug them, squeeze them, and take a million pictures of them, I don't know. But somehow, some way, they went missing. They've never been found. And now mom and dad, because they are mom and dad, once you adopt, you are mom and dad, have been charged with their murders. For those of you who don't know the story, Julie Janae has it for us tonight.
I don't understand. I just want my babies. If they find them, just give them back to me, please. That's all I want.
A desperate plea from a mother for her two young sons, Orrin, age 4, and Orson, age 3. Family members remember the brothers as happy babies who loved to laugh. They were reported missing on December 21st, 2020 by their adoptive parents.
Trezell West and Jaqueline West reported to the California City Police Department that the boys had disappeared from their backyard.
Trezell and Jaqueline West held a press conference 2 days later asking for the public's help in finding the boys.
Tell us what happened the night the kids went missing.
My wife's inside. She was actually wrapping gifts, so we thought it was a good idea to got our youngest to go outside and play with chalk in the back patio. I came back out. I didn't see them there. Asked my wife, "Did you see the boys?" She said no. I started searching my backyard. I searched the whole thing. I realized that I left the gate open, and I panicked.
We just want to thank everybody.
Really want to thank you guys.
Please, if anybody has seen them, please call, let somebody know.
Some in the crowd listening to the Wests didn't like what they were hearing and began asking questions.
Y'all say y'all came out looking for the kids, and y'all got neighbors that say y'all ain't even came out looking for the kids. The neighbors came out here.
We were looking.
We were looking.
I have 9 kids.
There's
There's
outside
no
the
way
backyard
I'm
that I was
gonna
watching.
leave my kids unattended. Not even for a minute.
The boys' biological mother, Ryan Dean, lost custody of them in 2016 after taking Orrin to the hospital for a broken leg. Authorities suspected her of child abuse. She attempted several times unsuccessfully to regain custody. Dean says during her visits with the kids, she noticed they were losing weight and had unexplained scratches.
If they find my kids, can they just give them back to me? Whatever I have to do to work on it to get them. I have a home, I have a car, I have a job, I have money. I just hope they're okay.
News of the missing boys galvanized the community.
Where are the boys? No boys, no me! Where are the boys? No boys, no me!
And hundreds of people from around the country also joined in the effort to find the lost brothers.
There were some elements that stood out about the foster families' interviews that pretty much compelled me to participate and come out and do what we could to help find both of these boys.
Multiple searches turned up no sign of Orrin and Orson. In March, more than a year after police were contacted, adoptive parents Trezell and Jaqueline West were arrested.
I'm saddened to announce that the investigation has revealed that Orrin and Orson West are deceased. The investigation has also revealed that they died 3 months before their adoptive parents reported them missing.
They were charged with second-degree murder, child abuse, and false reporting of an emergency. The couple pleaded not guilty and deny any involvement in the boys' disappearance.
While the defendants in this case, Trezell and Jaqueline West, are presumed innocent, the securing of a grand jury indictment is a major step in ensuring that there will be justice for Orrin and Orson.
The bodies of these two little boys still have not been found, and their biological mother is left with an unimaginable void.
I miss their smile. I miss the way I used to play with them during visits. I miss.
If you're over 40 and don't.
Sorry about that commercial break. Well, obviously, she didn't get to spend a lot of time with the children. They were young when they were taken from the state. This is a harrowing story because these people took these kids in at a very young age and then at 3 and 4 murdered them for whatever reason. It's a very diabolical case.
I just miss being their mother, and it was taken from me.
There's a trial going on. I want to bring in our special guest, Bakersfield, California, reporter for 23 ABC KERO, has been doing amazing work covering this story and now this trial. Veronica Morley is with us. Veronica, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Let's start here. We covered the opening statements, but it's been a while now. A lot has transpired in that courtroom. Give us sort of the rundown of some of the big points and some of the strongest evidence that prosecutors have presented inside that courtroom.
Yeah, Vinny, thank you. It's like you guys have been saying, a lot of us going into this trial, we were wondering how the prosecution got to that conclusion of charging the parents with murder when the bodies were never found. And so throughout this trial, what we've come to learn is that the night that the boys were reported missing, police actually sent an officer to go interview their 4 other children. And it was through these interviews and through statements that they made that police began to suspect that Orrin and Orson were never even in Cal City. And just throughout the trial, we start to see more and more of them hearing from family members saying that they can't exactly remember the last time they saw the boys, that the family members who visited Cal City remember seeing many children, but they couldn't exactly pick Orrin and Orson out from the crowd. And then several neighbors also saying that while they saw many kids, they don't know if they saw the 2 little boys. And then we watched surveillance video from neighbors pointed at their house, and you don't see much about all of the children that are coming in and out.
It's amazing because we call them the Cal City toddlers, but it's possible they were never even there because the family had moved from Bakersfield during COVID, like in September, to this house. So have they presented any evidence, maybe some forensic evidence, blood or something that would somehow indicate to this jury that a murder took place somewhere?
Well, what was the most shocking thing about the trial from the prosecution side was they had interviewed all of the West children on the days after their initial missing report, and through forensic interviews done with the eldest West child, he actually made allegations that one night he had heard strange noises coming from Orrin's bed, and that the next morning when he woke up, he saw Orrin with vomit surrounding him, and that his parents had actually told him Orrin had died. And in the recorded interview that was played in court, as the forensic interviewer asks him about what happened, the child says that he touched Orrin's body and he felt that it was cold. And at that moment, you could just hear gasps from the audience as they were listening to this recorded interview of this 10-year-old at the time.
Wow.
Let me stop right there. Court TV is the source. And I've never mentioned this because it's so hard trying to keep up with everything, replaying everything that's brought up in testimony. How in the world can you hold a conversation with a child about the death of another child, or anyone for that matter, and assume that he or she would hold the secret? You're talking about a child. And we know the children are taught to lie, manipulate, scheme. Some gather these traits on their own. But you're teaching your children to be mischievous in nature. And this is going to be a part of their DNA. You got to remember, we all came from somebody. And we gather ways from these people down the line as we get older. We do things that they did that we may not have thought we would do. Such, certain habits, tics. So at a young age, these children have been taught to lie. And I'm just trying to understand, how did these 2 heathens think it was okay to have this conversation? Don't tell anybody. You'll get taken away. And assume they would not repeat it, because as I said, they are children. It's not like you're telling an adult, hey, don't tell anybody I killed such and such. You're asking a child not to say anything. And naturally, the children would be scared being interrogated, as been reported. They're looking at men and women in rooms with guns and things. They would be fearful, not knowing if they're going to see their parents again, whether they were abusive or not. Because we still have children who will want to be in the company of their parents or guardians, even though they're abusive, because that's all they know. Each child is different. But once again, Imagine that conversation. He discovered the child dead, cold, the vomit. A conversation ensues, and he swears to secrecy for 3 months until these parents report the kids missing. So really, you told on yourselves because you're the ones that made the 911 call. The children didn't do that. Your family members didn't do that. And I believe the state was coming around asking questions, needed to see the children. Some type of verification was needed by the state. Because why did you choose December? There's a reason you chose December. And that's the one thing I have not heard either in this trial. Why the state thinks they chose December 21st as the day to report the children missing. But it's baffling to me to hear a child even say they had a conversation about a dead kid with their own parents. And the parents told them, don't tell anybody. You tell, they'll take you away, they'll take your brothers away. How in the world do you think a child will be able to hold that secret? This is so disturbing. And I pray that these children do not grow up with any of the traits from Jaqueline and Trezell, because you have to be realistic. These are their biological children. One has been taught to lie, to manipulate. And I'm so glad that as we were suspecting that maybe the kids had some involvement in the deaths of the children, I pray that they didn't, because that would also be a negative trait to carry if indeed these kids did have some involvement in the deaths, discarment of the children. Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's talk about the defense. Has the defense presented any evidence? Like, for instance, a photograph of these children in Cal City, a picture, some proof of life somewhere near the day that they reported them missing, because I think prosecutors' theory was these children were killed in September. They're not reported missing until December. Maybe a photograph from Halloween or a photograph from Thanksgiving or something. Was there anything that this defense presented in court as evidence that they're innocent, that they didn't do it, that maybe someone else did it, that they're telling the truth about them somehow walking through the gate?
You know, with as shocking as the evidence that the prosecution provided with those interviews from the children, the defense has also been able to pick apart a lot of that evidence and provide their own inconsistencies throughout the investigation, throughout these interviews. One of the most shocking things in the first days after opening statements was, as we heard from police officers who were investigating this case, we heard a lot about officers not writing reports, not collecting footage from a neighbor with surveillance cameras, or checking only one day instead of checking the entire months between September through December when the family was supposed to be living in Cal City. So it really pointed out some of the inconsistencies, and it really made it difficult. As far as forensic interviews, there's also a lot of inconsistencies that the defense was able to highlight as well when it came to testing DNA evidence in the Cal City home, in the couple's van. One thing that really stood out was an officer had initially testified that when he investigated the home, he didn't see any used diapers that led him to believe that the babies were never in the Cal City home. But then evidence comes to light that, in fact, a used diaper had been collected that had been sitting in the trash for a year before it was collected and tested for DNA evidence. And when
this is crazy to me. So let's go here. Despite these people, relatives and the children testifying to not seeing the children for months, did Cal City fail to investigate this, the disappearance of the children properly? Did they exhaust all measures, neighbors, surveillance cameras, doorbell cameras, businesses? You're hearing in the statement from this young lady, they didn't go back months. Surveillance. We on YouTube had already heard about the video of them getting in and out of the van on that Sunday, which was the 19th, I believe. Okay? But that's the point. People pick and choose on who they want to give their information to, such as their video surveillance. Was information and things gathered properly at the house, such as toothbrushes, blankets, so on and so forth? This is why I said, was it a lot to gather from the house? Because we don't even know what exactly was in the house. We weren't there. We don't know what evidence they had. If they had adequate bedding, this and that. Just because he built beds for the kids and a classroom, that has nothing to do with what's actually in the house. Did they have adequate bedding, like sheets, pillowcases, pillows, clothes, shoes? I don't know because I wasn't there. How many toothbrushes were there? I don't know. I wasn't there. But did Cal City do due diligence in investigating this case? Did they already assume they were guilty and they just said, we're not getting ready to go any farther, even though legally we were supposed to? Excuse me. But we're not. And they're throwing the book at Mr. Hansen's, I think it's Mr. Hansen, who felt like he wanted to arrest him right away. But see, that's the point. If you are a seasoned detective, may not be, or just your gut instinct, rather, because they're trying to say that he had experience in interrogating children. Well, maybe he's interrogated adults, but hasn't interrogated children. If you're seeing something that's not right, your spirit is telling you, okay. Because let's be truthful, in order to be a detective, you still have to have a discerning spirit. You have to have an innate feeling of reading people. Random people just can't read people. It is not to say that you can't be wrong about reading a person, getting a sense of a person, that they're maybe telling the truth, not telling the truth, they're hiding something, not telling the whole truth. But you have to have a discerning spirit to be a detective. I think most of us know this. So what was conflicting about his information, what he gathered versus what he testified to? And I do think it was wrong for them not to do written reports on what they said or what they gathered from the children, eyewitnesses. Everybody knows you're supposed to take down their notes of what a person said they saw or heard. From the neighbors to anybody that called in, anybody visited to tell you anything. You're supposed to videotape every interrogation of a person and a witness. Now, they know better. Now, I will say they're wrong for that, because this is how people get off. And it'll be a shame if these two get off, because somebody's sitting on that jury panel and saying, well, all we got is a testimony from a kid. Well, no, you got more than just a testimony of that kid. You've got relatives testifying and the other children testifying, saying the same thing. Everybody can't be lying. That's an old saying. Everybody can't be lying. And it's not to say that a lot of people don't lie, and it is not to say they got together to do a conspiracy on a person. But in this instant, this scenario, I'm going to say all these people are 9 times out of 10 telling the truth. They did not see children for at least 3 months. Let's go there. Possibly in the summer, spring, they were seen by somebody, neighborhood people, coming and going in the Bakersfield apartment complex. But once September came around, they moved to Cal City. Nobody in Bakersfield saw them with the children, the extra 2, and no one in the neighborhood can verify them. And let's be truthful, a bunch of little black boys running around. Am I really sitting here trying to figure out who they are when they're running in and out of an apartment, a house, getting in and out of a van or car? Hell no, if I ain't paying attention. And we have learned with African-American people that other races cannot identify us properly. That's another issue. And you heard that here in this testimony, in this commentary. Oh, neighbors saw children coming and going, but they can't just verbatim say, yeah, I saw this one, and this one. Because if they don't know them, they're not talking to them, they're not dealing with them. They don't know their children. And if you're several yards away, you can't really say which child is which child. And that's not the neighbor's fault, because they're minding their business. So what is it that they are claiming this detective? He dropped the ball. They didn't interview other people. They didn't search for other pedophiles in the area. They didn't videotape the interviews, which, as I said, they should have done. The state is right about that. I mean, the defense attorneys, they're right about that. You should have taped it, because down the road, it can bite you in the butt that you didn't. Because now we have to believe that what you said you saw, heard from any of these witnesses is the truth. And if you don't have it on record, on recording, how do I know, hey, that you are telling us the truth. Because we can't assume just because you are in law enforcement, you are telling the truth. Because we have learned that people who are detectives, sheriffs, whomever, have lied, fudged information, hid information. And you're dealing with an investigation of missing children. So you want everything recorded. Mercy.
When they tested it, they said that they weren't able to completely exclude whether it was Orrin's DNA on that diaper.
So, closing arguments, cameras will be back inside the courtroom?
Let me interject right there. What do you mean you can't test it? You have a biological mother and allegedly a biological father. And if worst case scenario, you know they were derived from Ryan Dean, all you have to do is have her DNA and test the evidential material of the diaper, what was left in the diaper. Come on now. We know you can test urine and fecal matter. It can bring back a DNA to say, yes, it matches this of the bio mother, bio father. So that shouldn't have been a problem because we don't have children alive to conduct DNA testing, but you do have a biological mother and allegedly a biological father of the children. So when you finally found the diaper, which this is more baffling, 1 year later, what the hell you mean 1 year later? So you mean to tell me a dirty diaper was sitting in a dumpster for a year, and one of the garbage cans for a year? Then that means you didn't thoroughly go through the garbage cans. But I do remember when people were poking around and doing YouTube videos back when, they were saying there were things in the garbage cans such as alcohol bottles, this and that. And I do believe I may have taken a glance of some of that information. Please don't tell me that inside of that garbage can were trash and Cal City didn't thoroughly go in the dumpster, the West trash to see what was in her trash bin. Because we've learned this with true crime cases. There are things that they do and don't do. And I've watched a lot of true crime cases where I have been literally spitting fire saying, you didn't know to ask this person this, you didn't know to check this, you didn't know to do this, you didn't know to double back, you didn't, because people become complacent, even in detective work. See, you have to remember, everything's about the human spirit. So here you have information about a dirty diaper a year later. So what are you trying to say? Because in order to make that statement, that means the diaper had to be visible to be found to claim that it was a year later. And I wouldn't gather a diaper and then not test it for a year unless it's a backlog. So it's either the diaper was brought in as evidence and tested late, or it's been sitting in that garbage can once they abandoned the property because of people stalking them and bothering them. And then somebody went in and said, oh, here's a dirty diaper, let's test it. So which is it? The diaper's been sitting in a lab somewhere or in the evidence room and tested a year later, or number two, somebody just found the diaper a year later sitting in a garbage can and then it was gathered as evidence and tested. If you found that, let me say this, if you went inside that garbage can and a year later and tested it, you are foul. That's poor police work, detective work. We know things sit on the backlog as far as rape kits, evidentiary material. So that's why I want to make sure I'm clear about what I'm saying. Was the dirty diaper in the garbage can at the time the children were missing and the report went in that they were missing and nobody went in the damn garbage can and looked? That means you're lax in your detective work, number one. Number two, the diaper was gathered but wasn't tested until a year later. I just want to make sure I repeat everything thoroughly as not to have any discrepancies in my information.
Yeah, cameras will be back inside that courtroom. And I think the biggest thing that we're going to be hearing again is the prosecution really trying to drive down the idea that, as you said, there's not any photographic evidence of these boys. There's no reportable sightings of these boys, and the children's own testimony to officers back in 2020 where they were kind of confused and at some point saying that the boys never made it to Cal City. Whereas on the defense points, they're really going to tie down not only the lack of physical evidence and DNA evidence linking the boys to this, or linking the parents to this crime, but also pointing out the difficulties within these children's recorded interviews back in 2020. Because again, all the children, they were under 10 years old, and the defense really did their job at pointing out how difficult it can be interviewing a child at that age and how unreliable sometimes those memories can be.
Yeah, every prosecution is difficult. This one's a little bit more difficult, but it should be very easy to prove that these children were alive. Veronica Morley, great work out there. I'm sure we'll be calling you again. Hopefully you can join us again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's bring in our think tank. Join us tonight in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey. Criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Al Wunsch III. Joining us from Stamford, Connecticut, criminal defense attorney Darnell Crossland. And in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, family law attorney Jennifer Brand. Great to see everyone. Al, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with Darnell. If you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Okay, no Darnell. Easiest case in the world for the defense to win. I'll tell you what. I have a 4-year-old granddaughter. I have a picture of her like every day in her life. Okay? Every single day of her life. Not just holiday, every single day. And it's because, children, you love them. They do amazing things. They're so cute. Oh, I want to remember this moment forever. Any parent will take at least one picture of their child in 3 months. And if you have 2, you would take at least 2 pictures in 3 months.
Exactly.
They presented 0. They want to rely upon a 1-year-old dirty diaper as proof of life. Come on, Darnell. Come on. Yeah. This should be the easiest case if they were factually innocent.
Well, it definitely won't make it just easy because, as you know, there's a lot of things that go into this. As we just heard from the correspondent, the defense is picking holes in the prosecution case.
Blah, 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 blah. I hear that in every single trial from everything. Blah, 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 blah. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. You know what? These parents didn't take one picture of their 3- and 4-year-old children? Are you kidding me? What parent in America? America, raise your hand right now. You have a 3- or 4-year-old. You don't take one picture with your camera that you carry around with you 24 hours a day, taking 1,500 selfies? Give me a break, Darnell. This isn't about what the prosecution didn't do. To me, this case is about what the parents didn't do. If they were innocent, don't take one picture. Look at them.
That's the truth. But what's going to break your heart is if you get a verdict like that Florida verdict that you always talk about.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
I know. Al, am I crazy? Is the jury going to have some common sense here? Is the jury going to say, listen, you're a parent of these 2 kids. You're not going to take a picture of them? That's how easy it is to prove proof of life. Prosecutors were specific. They said the murders took place in September. They were reported missing in December.
That's a very valid point, Vin. Okay, I agree with you. There should have been something there. There's got to be more proof of life than a diaper. The testimony of the other children that were there is provocative. It's certainly going to be something that a jury is going to be holding on to and thinking about. This is just a horrible, horrible case. But I always get nervous about children's testimonies. I just think about Fells Acres daycare case.
Yeah, but what was specific?
40 years ago.
Veronica told us that one of the children testified that the body was cold. Would a 10-year-old really know to say the body was cold when I touched it?
Exactly.
See, that's a problem. That was the whole Fells Acres case, which was that they were putting thoughts into these kids' minds, and then they were aping the testimony. And that's what they ended up convicting these people, which I believe are up for a pardon now. But it's that's the kind of danger you run when you're trying to use small children to try to prove your case. But I think you hit the nail on the head. The proof of life has to come from mom and dad. Okay, even stepmom and dad, or even foster mom and dad.
No, they adopted them. They adopted them. Well, changed their names. Changed the children's names.
It's all relative. with regards to that. And that proof of life is pictures with all the kids.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily be the picture of just the one. It can be the picture of all of them.
All
Exactly.
six. All six.
Exactly. Sitting at the dinner table, going to a restaurant, doing this, doing that, some activities together. That's the key to the proof of life.
Exactly.
So even though you have, what I would call sketchy testimony with regards to the kids as to what they actually knew, I think that.
And by the way, right now, they could have that same 10-year-old if testify about, oh yeah, I was playing with my brothers. But that doesn't exist either. So
exactly.
Come on.
That's exactly
very well said.
Yeah,
very
so
well
they
said.
failed to put the one piece of testimony up there that would have maybe sunk the case for the prosecution.
Jennifer Brand, the other part of this is, I believe, and I remember in other times covering this story, that somehow, some way, California had given these parents some sort of financial incentive, and there was a financial incentive for the county also to have these children adopted out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the sick part of all of
yes.
this. Is that they overlooked the best interests of the children, and they're looking at the best interests of getting some money from the federal government.
Oh, well, of course, Vinny. I mean, that gives them a motive to want to deny that anything happened to the children, to not report that anything happened to the children, to keep on acting like the children are still alive. I mean, we just saw it with Lori Daybell. I mean, people do that. They want money. The kids mean money. So if the kid is deceased, if something happened to the child, there's no more money. So it's in their best interest to say, hey, these children are around, they're alive, they're with us, they moved with us. There would be no reason for them to say otherwise. But I agree with you. I mean, all they had to do was produce some pictures, to produce some information, to produce some other proof other than an old diaper that these children were alive. And, it would be interesting to see, did they take pictures of their other kids and not these two? Or, could they have said, hey, we just are not into taking pictures. We don't have the resources for that. We don't have phones or something.
I'm sorry. Everybody has a phone
exactly.
now.
Come on, Vinny. Tell it now. Tell it now, Vinny.
You're right.
From the time they're in fourth grade, they've got phones.
Yes,
now.
they do.
The other
Amen.
thing about this case is it's just ridiculous. The story was ridiculous from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the land and where this guy said he was, and how two little kids are just going to scamper out and escape. Give me a break. And there was no one in the area to abduct them. Everyone in that neighborhood had surveillance videos. No, just, it's insane. But we'll see. We'll see what the jury does. Darnell warned me already. Thank you, Darnell, for trying to help prepare me for what could happen here.
All right, everybody. Court TV is the source. Thank you so much. Please check my library via the YouTube queue for that said commentary. Thank you, Court TV. Vinny Politan. Vinny made great points. Children escaping out of the yard. We now find out that it wasn't no dog chalk. It was real chalk that they alleged the children were back there playing with. Well, they weren't back there playing because they were dead and gone. And I do believe they were dead and gone at the time of that interview that Jaqueline and Trezell gave to the news agents, December 2020. You can't explain it logically. As I said, killing one, killing two, because there's no logic behind killing a child, period. That's the point. Killing the second child is even more suspect. And you can weigh it 1,000 ways and try to chop up why they did this, why they did this. It's illogical to kill a child, period. Your temper, your religious reprimands, physical reprimands, your hand is heavier, you're bigger than a kid. You can kill a kid by hitting a child, beating a child. You get out of control, slap a child, throw him down on the ground, whatever. Come on now. Why were the children murdered? Because if I'm to believe that one child died accidentally, that means you deliberately killed the second child for whatever crazy delusional reason. None of this makes any sense. This is an illogical case. You're dealing with children. As I said, they were doomed from the beginning. Nobody can make me believe different. I weigh all options and I weigh everything I've said, everything that's been told to me, and they were doomed. Because if they weren't, they'd be here now. Common sense. Too many people have said they haven't seen the children. So you can't say this was lying, that was lying. No forensics, but you can't deny family members saying, I haven't seen the children in this amount of time. Children testifying, I haven't seen the children in this amount of time. And then you have to also ask if DHS was sent letters to see the children, verify visits, this and that. You weren't responding, this and that. See, there's a reason for the December 2020 report of them missing. I've always said that. Stay woke. Monetary gain. DHS foster care hustle. Many people in the United States are taking their children just for the money. They don't give a damn about your kid. They don't give a damn about taking care of the kids, doing right by the kids. It's a means to an end. Because then what they feel like is, I don't know when they're coming to visit. Somebody will tell me, oh, we're going to come see the children. They'll put the kids out there, make them look like they're wholesome and clean and this and that, hoping the kids don't tell the truth. Yeah, they're abusing me, physically abusing me, locking me in a closet, not feeding me, blah, blah, blah. Because when you're a narcissist, you think you're in control of the situation and that nobody will ever turn on you. That is these people. Jaqueline, Trezell West, Lori Vallow Daybell. They're all narcissists, see. You're a fool to think your kid wouldn't tell you killed a kid and y'all had the conversation. Come on now. That's why they're on trial for murder. The child told it. Whether Cal City appropriately did the interrogation properly, didn't exhaust all measures, was looking at other people as suspects. You can't deny what the children said. So what the children said versus Cal City dropping the ball is in the investigation arena, that happens. People don't talk to people. They don't tape video. Maybe they felt they need to tape it. I'm not making excuses for them. Because only a fool would not tape an interrogation of a child and a witness. You always tape because you're going to need it down the road when it's time to go to trial. So why they wouldn't tape the children talking, that makes no sense to me. I'm not going to sit here and take notes on a child saying this, and this. I'm going to videotape this. You're supposed to always videotape an interrogation. So yes, Cal City, you relax in that department. But 1 week later, Bakersfield got the case. And that's from the testimony of the children. Because remember, they said the 28th boy child was interviewed. So Bakersfield got it shortly after the 911 call going into the dispatch that the children were missing. No forensics, no evidence, no hair, no fiber, no fecal matter, urine, this and that. Just the child saying, we talked, I touched him, saw him vomit, blah, blah, blah. He's dead. Parents, we consulted with one another. Parents have testified, yeah, we haven't seen the children at this time. Too many people have testified and said they haven't seen the damn kids. So in the end, it doesn't even really matter about what Bakersfield didn't do, what Cal City didn't do. That has nothing to do with the testimony from the children and the parents. Nobody have seen the children for 3 months or more. So we're to believe that all these people are lying about not seeing the children because they were dead. And that's the old saying, is it not? A dead man tells no tales. He can't tell nothing because he's dead. Stay woke. You got to pray that you find the dead man to tell the tale. But if he's obsolete, missing in action, he can't tell us anything. And that's the gist of this story. The boys have been discarded. They can't tell us anything forensically. And that's the hard part of the story. So we got to pray that 12 members of the jury will say, children have said they haven't seen the children. Relatives have said they haven't seen the children. All these people aren't lying because that means the children were dead, gone, discarded. So however you want to word it, they're gone. And these people waited till December to report them missing when they knew all along that the children were dead. Checkmate. Jaqueline, Trezell, you know you're guilty of hurting these children, harming these children. You had a child come in and testify about you putting them in a chokehold. Well, see, what somebody needs to do is put your ass in a chokehold, Jaqueline. And you would hate if they put you in population in that jail. You wouldn't even be able to make it to trial, possibly. But then we learned that many people get their sentences and go to prison, and they are in population, and nothing happens to them. No fights, no pulling of the hair, no cutting them, gutting them. You understand where I'm going? That's what some of us hope for. Something bad would happen to them in general population, but it usually doesn't happen. They go off into the night and live their life in prison. But what would be sad if somebody on the jury decides to become empathetic? I said that with Lori Vallow. You can't ever say, because it happened with Casey Anthony. And Casey Anthony is a case that people will always use because it happened. 12 members voted not guilty. Not one held the jury up. 2 held the jury up. 12 people said, let her go. And that's troublesome to me. 12 Floridians who obviously act like they were how dope said, oh, Baez gave us reasonable doubt. But the reasonable doubt were her parents and the utility worker. So you're basically saying either her parents killed the little girl or the utility worker did it. And I don't think either one did, because she was gone from her parents' house for a month, meaning she left with the little girl. She was the responsible party. The mother saying, we've been trying to reach her, call her. I don't think that lady lied. But 12 members of the jury basically said that she did. How could they not say she was lying? You let her go. I haven't seen my daughter, I haven't seen my granddaughter, but you let Casey Anthony walk. So did the prosecution put on a case to show that they conspired and or deliberately killed their children, abuse of the children? Did the state do their job, or did the defense show that the state did not do their job? That there is reasonable doubt that Jaqueline and Trezell West murdered these children. Because as I've told the panel the other night with Brittany and my other guests, what is the logic behind killing baby number 1? There is no logic. Number 2, there's no logic behind killing baby number 2. Oh, they killed baby number 2 because somebody's going to be suspect about baby number 1. Well, you're a liar, so what difference does it make? You got baby number 1 missing. I'm still gonna ask. Well, where the children? They got he over at the grandmama. Let's just say you got 1 gone. He with the grandmama. Okay, now you kill baby number 2. Well, where are both of them? Oh, they with the grandmama. And as I say, that they were really dealing with their family members. They had a real relationship. They were visiting each other. Somebody gonna start questioning where the hell these kids are and why I can't see them. Come on now. And the fact that they said that Jacqueline's mothers didn't even know their names. Well, hell, what we should be asking is, hell, does Jaqueline mama even know damn English? Because one of the eyewitnesses didn't know no damn English. And you know, I done gave my commentary about that Monday night. You're a United States citizen, you should know English. Checkmate. I don't care where you come from. Will 12 members of the jury find Jaqueline and Trezell West innocent or guilty of the said crimes against their children? Because it will be jacked up if somebody lets them go. Somebody, plural, let them go. All hell would break loose. Did you hear what I said? But we're in a society where people uphold vile people. This is why true crime exists, because somebody vile killed a person, told it, and somebody didn't tell the secret, such as this 10-year-old. He held it for a few months without telling anybody, and they kept their kids secluded for whatever reason, because 9 times out of 10, if he was living an active life as a 10-year-old, the secret would have been got out that the little boy was dead. Do you understand what I'm saying? He would have told a friend, oh yeah, my little baby brother dead, because kids talk. Ding, ding, ding. And that's possibly why they did move. But my understanding is that the kids were recluses with the parents, even in Bakersfield. Why? And all that stuff that lawyer put on, I read, oh, Jaqueline brought him to religion. Well, how are you religious and you're murdering children? So defense attorney, you don't know what you're talking about. They're not religious. Because religious versus being a Christian, that's all hype. Because what I do and how I talk, how I carry myself, that determines if I'm a Christian or not. And in the end, it's only for God to judge me. So she didn't bring him to nothing, because a decent human wouldn't be beating up children, allowing the wife to beat up children, put them in chokeholds and pin them down. And you wouldn't carry the lie of beating up children, hurting children, starving children. And you wouldn't ask your own child to lie for you when you know that you and your wife killed a child deliberately or accidental. You wouldn't ask your child to lie. And see, that's why I'm nervous for the children, because they are spawns of these demons and they carry their trait, their DNA. And we have to pray that they don't grow up to become sinister to biological children. We also have to pray for the foster care children, because they came into their house as foster care children, adopted, and now they're back in the system. Do you see the irony in this story? That all of this hustling and double juggling to take in children to get money, it backfired on Jaqueline and Trezell West, because see, God said, your spirit ain't right. And then they were working for the devil, so they created their own fate. And in exchange, come on with it, Queen, they sacrificed their children for hustling other people's children. You see, there was an even exchange. This is why I keep telling you the universe is something. I'm going to go into the system and use and manipulate the government to get these kids so I don't have to work. As you heard in this commentary, that was their main source of income. They weren't doing anything to work and make no money. They're living off the government, hustling children. And in the end, they killed kids, and then their own children went into the state's custody. Shazam. You want me to believe God wasn't working? The devil, everybody was working. As we say in the street, I can show you better than I can tell you. Payback is hell. You're using the government and using innocent children to hustle them for money, and in the end, your own children became sacrifices. And now they're in the custody of the state. You can't make this up. And now they have to worry about their safety and livelihood, that people won't mistreat them. And I'm sure Jaqueline and Trezell think about this every day. This is my payback for manipulating and using the government and using these children and mistreating these children and killing these children. Now my own children are wards of the state, such as with the Wells case. You see, God don't like ugly. You chose this, and your children became the ultimate sacrifice. I want to thank you all for joining me. Allegedly, something will transpire. Allegedly, they said next week. I don't know. I just know today is Wednesday, witching hour here in East Tennessee. The jury briefly deliberated in this case. We will see if they bring us a verdict today. I pray that they do. And they bring Jaqueline and Trezell West guilty, convict them of all charges, and that they have life without parole. Frankly, they deserve the death penalty, because you're talking about two children. So it'll be two separate hearings, because there will be a penalty phase pertaining to the punishment if indeed they are found guilty. Please check out my previous video I uploaded a little while ago pertaining to Deshina Kyle. John Bassett decided to take the witness stand on Tuesday to say that his girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, whomever, she killed herself. Because I don't know if they were together or not together. But allegedly he is labeled ex-boyfriend. Please check out that video, because you know that's BS too. That girl didn't kill herself. I don't believe that. She was right-handed and shot on the left-hand side. Stay woke now. Lori Vallow Daybell, guilty, will stand trial for the murder of her previous husband, Charles, in the state of Arizona. She's doomed as well. Will Mr. Chad Daybell turn on her, take a plea, and end this madness, so people don't have to go to trial and testify the same information that they gave in Lori's case? Thank you, Tammy. Save the taxpayers' money, Mr. Chad, and tell the truth about what happened to the children, the reason you all murdered those kids, and be done with it. I will be bringing you more content, hopefully in a couple of hours, pertaining to 2 cases on my community channel of a young man who put a woman in a tote. She's allegedly still alive. And another case of a man setting his father's girlfriend on fire. This is crazy nonsense coming out of Ohio. Everybody that lost their damn mind. And we have some murder cases stemming right now, currently here in Knoxville, Tennessee, in the general area. There's been a murder damn near every day for the past week. I don't know what the hell's going on here, but I see we are starting to act like fools, such as Atlanta, Chicago, and Memphis. And I don't like it. That's why I tell you, you have to be aware of your surroundings, the company you keep, the places you frequent, patronize, because you can become a victim easily. You can become a victim in your home. You can become a victim in the people you date, marry, relatives, friends of friends, associates, being in the wrong place, wrong time, your workplace. It doesn't matter. When the devil decides to play funny games, he will. And he doesn't care about the jurisdiction. Like, share, subscribe, make this video go viral. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $BeganG, 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats, and welcome to the live stream. This is live number 2 in the witching hour. Thank you for your time. Prayers for the Kyle family. Justice for Deshina Kyle. Justice for Shaquella Robinson. Information has been released 2 weeks ago that one of the young ladies from that Cabo trip has been beat up. It is in the YouTube queue. Videos have been uploaded presenting to she and another woman being beat up by some other women in a nightclub, outside a nightclub. See, justice came home for those 2 as well. Now they've got a few more to go. So you have to be very careful how you treat people, how you talk to people, what you do to people, because you don't know the day that karma will come back around. And I find it very interesting that all those people that went on that trip to Mexico are walking around acting as if they SHIT don't stink. You should know that your days are numbered. And you should know that there are people who have nothing to lose. And they don't mind bopping you upside the head or putting a gun to your head and blowing your brains out for what you did to Shaquella Robinson. You all take a lot for granted out here. That's why you have to treat people accordingly. That's why the queen tries to stay to herself, because I know that if I say to myself, I shouldn't have no problem with you. And any problem you decide to exact and say, it was on me, no, it was on you. Because if I ain't dealing with you, then it shouldn't be a problem. Be very careful how you treat people, because karma is a you know what. And as I was once told, that when you're out here doing wrong, the universe has to get it back. And it's in the scripture, if you believe in the Bible, that what the devil stole, he's got to give it back 7 times. So you can't be out here doing wrong, mistreating people, lying, cheating, stealing, manipulating, defrauding, physical, sexual assaults against people, killing people. You got to give that back. And one way or the other, it's going to be given back, with or without your permission. You see, working for the devil, you don't make anything because he don't pay you anything. And that's the one thing the devil doesn't tell you when he's out here recruiting you. He makes it seem like, yeah, go and do this. Come on, jump on board. I'll pay you later. Maybe that's what he tells us. I'll pay you later, but in the end, he never pays. Because what you're getting is temporary satisfaction from your misdeeds, crimes, so on and so forth. But the end all could be death, because that's in the scripture as well. The wage of sin is death. So what we have to tell ourselves, is it worth it, the things that we do? So long as you repent, you're in good standing with God. Pray for our great nation. We are in trouble right now. The economy is bad. People are homeless. People who work are homeless. People can't find work. People can't find a new place to live. A lot of people needing a place to live. And then we have these people walking amongst us that are vile and vicious, and they don't care anything about you. They're watching and they're gawking and they're looking for a victim. We all need prayer. Once again, my condolences to the Kyle family, and I pray that justice will be rendered against Mr. John Bassett. And we will wait to see what the jury decides in the case of Jaqueline and Trezell West in the murder of their two toddler boys, Orrin and Orson West. Thank you for joining me on this early Wednesday. Please be safe out there, and please check my community board for said updates, polls, and breaking news. You have been listening to The Vote XL. Hello, Cornbread 69. Thank you for joining me.